Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's meeting of the EAG Open Forum. I'm Stephen Chard. I'm clerking today's meeting, and I'm opening because the first item of business is to elect a chairman for the remainder of the municipal year. Are there any nominations for chairman? Councillor Vickers.
I would like to nominate Councillor Stuart.
Thank you, Martha. Does that find a seconder?
Yes, hello, I'd like to second Councillor Stuart Hawley.
Thank you both. Are there any other nominations? No. In that case, I'll put the proposal, Councillor Gawley as chairman, to the vote. All those can raise their hand. Thank you. And in that case, Councillor Gawley, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I'm Councillor Stuart Gawley. I'm the portfolio holder for Climate Action, Recycling and Biodiversity. So the members of the committee joining me this evening are Councillors Dennis Bennyworth, who's online, Nick Carter, Caroline Culver, who's online, Paul Kander, Jeff Mays, who's online, Richard Sumner and Martha Vickers. Looking at who else is on. Cool. So the following officers are in attendance, either in person or virtually. We've got John Winstanley, who's the Service Director for Environment, Kofi Adu-Diamthi, Service Lead for Climate Change, Jenny Graham, Environment Delivery Manager, Daniel Warm, Waste Manager, and Stephen Chard, who's the clerk and Zoom host for this evening. We also have the following guests who are present tonight. We've got Peter Jones from Eunomia Research and Consulting, who's online. We have Michael Duper Miller and Philip Atkinson from Grundon, and we've got Nick Swift in person as well. So thank you very much for everyone for coming along. Just a few pieces of housekeeping for this evening and for those of us present in the chamber. If we hear the evacuation alarm this evening, we must leave the building immediately. Please proceed via the safest emergency exit. There's one at the back of the room, or there's two at the back of the room, and also the main entrance is at the front. And follow the exit routes and follow any instructions given by officers. The assembly point is the Dolphin Pub. And if the lockdown alarm sounds, we will remain seated and await instructions from officers. And we will adjourn the meeting until it's such a time as it's safe to proceed. Before I carry on, does anyone have any questions at all? No. Good, excellent. In that case, we will move on to item 2 on the agenda. Oh.
Yeah, the hand was up, but seems to have gone down.
Ah, okay.
Jeff, Councillor Jeff.
Ah, okay. Councillor Mace, did you have a question? Sorry.
No, that's all right now.
Cool.
I was just testing the buttons.
In that case, we'll move to item 2, which is apologies.
Yes, Chairman. Apologies received from Councillor Vicky Paul and Councillor Owen Jeffrey.
Great, thank you. And then item 3, which is declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of interest? No. Good, cool, excellent. And then we'll move swiftly on to item 4, which is minutes of the previous meeting. The matters arising. So I hope we'll have a chance to review the minutes from the previous meeting. And does anyone have any issues or concerns or comments? No, nothing in the room. Okay. In that case, I'd like to propose the approval of the minutes from the chair. Does that find a seconder at all? Councillor Martha Vickers, thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Excellent, thank you very much. That is everybody. Perfect. Do I need to sign those now?
Oh, yes, please. Right. Yeah.
I will just sign the minutes. In that case, we will move on to item 5, which is an overview of the government's simpler recycling requirements. And I invite Peter Jones from Pneumonia Research and Consulting to take us through his presentation.
Bear with me.
Thank you very much. Is it okay for me to share a presentation on the screen?
Stephen's just about to do it.
You've got that in hand.
Yes,
It is coming.
Wonderful.
It's on its way.
There we go. Technology is happening.
Yeah, it's showing from my screen. But,
I can certainly see it also.
you can see it, but so that's
Yeah, well,
Probably.
it's not showing in the room at the moment, which is somewhat ironic, I think.
yeah.
I think we can have it for those online.
Yeah,
That's forward.
yeah.
Okay.
Peter, do you want to try sharing it from your end and see if we can see it? Yeah. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
I'm afraid that the host has to enable participant screen sharing.
I've just enabled that. It should have worked, but I'll try. I've just done
It has. You're fine.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
There we go. Is that any better for you?
Yeah, we can see that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Well, let's go from there. Thank you very much for the opportunity to give you a bit of an update on what what's come out from recent announcements from the government. So I'm going to walk you through the content of the new simpler recycling requirements that local authorities in England will be expected to meet. For those who heard me speak last time I was at this group, there will be some points of similarity, and I'll make sure that we highlight those as we go through, but also tell you what's new and different from the latest. So just for the context, Eunomia has been commissioned by the council to put together a new waste strategy. It's something that we're doing quite consultatively. Many councillors have already been involved in this process in some way or other, working closely also with officers and with members of the public. And the idea is to look again at the nature of the waste services that are provided by the council to the public. Clearly, a core part of that is the day-to-day collections that take place from people's homes, although that's not the only point of emphasis within that overall strategy. But what we're going to talk about today is primarily focused on those curbside and flats collections. It's informed by modelling work, mathematical modelling that we've been doing to look at the costs and performance benefits that come out from different steps that the council could take, different changes it could make to its collection system. But the choices that are available to the council have been influenced by national policy developments. And while we've been undertaking this work, it's been in the shadow of a bit of uncertainty around what the government would announce off the back of a consultation that took place some while ago. We now have rather more clarity than we had before. And so I'm going to highlight what we now know and how that, what the implications that has for the strategy development. So again, contextualizing this change, simpler recycling is one of 4 quite significant changes that has come through in recent times. They're all going to take effect during the lifespan of the proposed strategy. All are subject to some degree of uncertainty, particularly around timing. The content is becoming clearer and clearer, but they all will have an impact. Those are extended producer responsibility for packaging, which means the people who make packaging and sell it into the country will be responsible for paying for the costs of managing it when it becomes waste. So there's going to be a new income stream to the council in respect of the waste packaging that it handles. There's a deposit return scheme planned, which is intended to mean that members of the public, when they buy a plastic bottle, a drink in a plastic bottle or a drink in an aluminium can, will, instead of putting that in their household waste container, be expected to return it via a separate system where they would pay a deposit when they buy the item and receive that money back when they return it into the collection system. And there's a 25-year environmental plan which sets some targets that are expected to be met nationally. They don't yet devolve into specific local authority targets, but all of these changes are likely to result in renewed focus on local authorities achieving higher levels of recycling than they do at the moment. Even authorities like West Berkshire, that has a pretty good recycling rate compared to others at the moment. And in amongst that, we've got this set of simpler recycling proposals, which are mainly about the rules under which local authorities in England will operate in shaping the design of their household waste collections. If you were in Wales or in Scotland, you would already have a set of national guidance like this that you'd be operating under. But in England, this is a bit of a new thing, to the extent that it does say to councils, these are the minimum standards that government expects you to meet as far as the design of collections is concerned. So this has been a while in the making. The consultation to which the simpler recycling proposals are a response came out in May 2021. There's been considerable back and forth over the proposals the government then made. It's had a change of name. It was called Consistent Collections when it came out. It's now Simpler Recycling. So there's been a bit of a change of emphasis over the course of the last couple of years. And it was only just last month, in late October, that the results were published. It does answer quite a lot of the questions that were a bit unresolved in the original set of proposals. But it does also, some of the things that the government has said it wants to do are subject to current consultations that are now going on, much smaller, quicker consultations just with primarily the local authorities that would be affected, rather than a wide consultation with the whole industry and the general public like the May 2021 consultation was. Those are ongoing at the moment. We don't quite know what the outcome of those is going to be, but it doesn't seem like the government is particularly inclined to change its view. So we shall see whether anything transpires. But I will run you through what is now known and where the possible room for variation from that remains. So there are some things which, when the government announced the consistent collections back in May 21, they have remained unchanged in simpler recycling as now as it now stands, and are very unlikely to change any further. They're not terribly controversial. So only some of this affects West Berkshire. We've circled, highlighted in yellow the ones that are of core relevance to West Berkshire. So all local authorities across England will have to make available collections of food waste from all households. And also, I mean, if you are collecting from businesses, then you need to provide collections to businesses as well. But obviously that's not mandatory for local authorities to do in the way that household waste collections are. Where authorities are needing to make changes, there's some support for central government to do that. For West Berkshire, you already had in place plans to extend the current service to make sure that all households were covered. So that's something that's in hand as things stand. On what we call the dry recycling, so the paper, card, plastic, metal, those sorts of things that go into the recycling bin. For the first time, the government is mandating a set of types of material that all local authorities must collect. And while it's not quite as clear as you might wish it to be, it's pretty it's pretty well understood that the intention of what meant by collection is that it's collection direct from the house, not via some sort of bring site where you can take stuff to drop it off. It's actually collected from you as a householder. So the core set of materials that must be collected will be glass, metal, plastic, paper, and card. And with an intention that by 2027, plastic film, so your plastic bags and wraps and things, would also need to be collected from that date. So those are clearly significant additions, things that are going to involve West Berkshire having to collect some non-can aluminium, so things like foil and trays that aren't currently within scope, and having to put in place plans to be able to collect plastic film that is not currently collected. You may be surprised to learn that there are some local authorities that don't collect garden waste. You may be less surprised when you hear that one of them is the Corporation of the City of London, which doesn't really have an awful lot of gardens to worry about. But that form of collection is also going to become mandatory. Obviously, that's something that West Berkshire does already offer, so that's not something that's a change for the council. However, there are some factors that are different from what was originally consulted upon, or that are now clear when they weren't clear before. So there's a bit more flexibility for local authorities around how food waste can be collected. So a bit more generosity around allowing those that have collected food and garden waste mixed together to continue to do so, although they would be required to collect them, those materials together weekly, which would become quite expensive if you were offering food and garden together. So that maybe still a lot of authorities will switch to separate food waste collections so that the garden waste can be less frequent. On dry recycling, it had been proposed that it was going to be necessary for local authorities to justify if they wanted to collect different types of dry recycling mixed together. That proposal has gone away. Now, for West Berkshire, it isn't such a big deal. You already separate to the degree that the government was going to require, so it wasn't going to be a problem. That proposal has now gone away, so it means there's an opportunity for West Berkshire to think about, is it happy to remain in the long term an authority that separates material into lots of different streams, or is there a preference to look at alternatives to that in the future when contracts allow? That change has been, whilst it was very much driven by a focus, the idea of separating more material was driven by a focus on quality. It has been, the move away from it has been justified by a reference to quantity, so that there isn't really a quantitative additional amount of recycling that you get from having more source separation. But there will probably be some disgruntled people in the waste industry who were hoping to get more high quality recycling like they get from West Berkshire out of the system as a whole, and may now find their hopes of that have receded a little. On garden waste, there had been a proposal that charging for garden waste collections was to be banned. That proposal has now been abandoned. The government's decided that it wouldn't be good value for money for them to meet the costs of local authorities to provide that service free of charge. So they've decided that that authorities can, if they wish, continue to do that. I think they're still indicating a preference that authorities shouldn't charge for that service, but they're not going to bar authorities from doing so, so long as the charge is reasonable. Let's hope there may be some guidance forthcoming on what reasonable means, but I don't think that that is going to be a problem for too many councils. Now, these are changes that they are, to the extent that they're making changes, these are changes that are largely made through guidance and through the powers of the Secretary of State, not made through changes to legislation. I'm just highlighting that because they are particularly this thing about whether authorities need to separate material. That is a thing that a future Secretary of State would be able to change if they wished to by that same process. They wouldn't have to write new legislation. They would just be able to make a change if they're satisfied that doing so meets the standard that I've written on the slide. But Councillor Abbs, you got a hand up.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether you wanted to take questions as you went along or wait to the
Always
end.
happy to take your questions, Councillor Abbs.
Not everybody is, so thank you very much for that. That's nice of you to say. Now, the obvious question is, we are within striking distance of a general election.
Yes.
Are you looking at the Labour proposals, who are the most likely to be in charge after the election? And can you give us any insight as to what you've said and how that might change?
It's tricky to answer that without taking a view on. There have been no clear announcements yet from Labour of a departure from any of the things that the government has said. It's just not a battleground at the moment. It's not people are not talking about waste and recycling as one of the general election issues. When one thinks about what a future Labour administration might find that it wished to do, though, one thinks about the sorts of pressures that any government is going to find itself under. And this also relates to a further point about an important change that's being made. So perhaps I can just do this slide and then it will make sense to come back to that question.
Thank you.
So one of the most controversial things that the government has put forward, certainly controversial with the many local authorities that do already restrict residual waste collections to being less frequent than fortnightly, is that they have said that through statutory guidance, not through legislation, they will require local authorities to collect residual waste, so the black bin general waste, no less than fortnightly. Some questions arise about that, and authorities that either were already planning to move to 3 weekly collections or that had already implemented them will be asking these questions quite urgently. So it's not written in legislation, whilst the requirement to collect food waste weekly is written in legislation. So how much force does this statutory guidance have? What would happen to a council that chose not to follow statutory guidance? How might a council justify a decision to depart from guidance? Councils do depart from guidance in some areas, but only where they can justify doing so. How does this fit alongside other targets and goals? And are there any other ways that are as effective for local authorities to bring recycling and packaging capture rates up to higher levels? And this, Councillor Abbs, is what relates to the question of what a future government might do. So written into both the extended producer responsibility rules and the 25-year environmental plan are various targets. So for producer responsibility, it's about the percentage of different types of packaging that producers must fund a system that is capable of collecting. So we must get to 80-something% of cardboard and 50-something% of plastic by 2030. And then as a whole, municipal waste recycling is supposed to hit 65% by 2035. What a future administration may find itself facing is a situation where the rules that have been put in place about how local authorities must conduct themselves aren't helping to hit the targets that have been set. So you might have an inconsistency between policies. And then you know, we're an independent country. We can choose whether to have those targets or not have them, and we can choose whether to change our policies to make it more possible for us to hit those targets or not. The government is supposed to be held accountable by its own Office of Environmental Protection, which is supposed to play this sort of policeman role and highlight where government isn't on track to meet its targets. And some hard questions may get asked if it becomes clear that there is a conflict between the two. But beyond that, it's very difficult to say which way a future administration would jump, whether it would go in the direction of being more environmentally focused or of perhaps having a slightly easier life as far as making things, making services available for householders is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with that, I believe a waste strategy is under development. You're obviously been engaged to do that.
Yes.
So, given that means we'll probably see something from you, I guess, within the next 6 to 7 months, hitting.
Far sooner than that, I hope.
By the time it gets to the chamber is what I'm thinking of, not when Stuart sees it. And the chairman sees it when the rest of us see it. Do you think this has allowed you to settle on a strategy that you can actually propose, or is there so much uncertainty that you would actually should really be recommending a pause whilst we actually see what happens?
I think for West Berkshire, as I started off by saying, by no means everything you do on waste is curbside collections. There is an awful lot that the council can do that isn't affected by this at all. And that it would be unfortunate to put lots of other good work off because of some uncertainty around this. Also for West Berkshire, the long-term PFI contract that you have in place means that it's quite costly to move away from your current system, and certain decisions have needed to be taken around about this time about the procurement of vehicles and so forth that mean that significant departures from how you do things at the moment are quite tricky from a financial and practical point of view. And so for us, when I talk to you about the options we have been looking at, it's not that there are only certain changes that we can propose that are likely to be financially viable for you in the course of the next 7-8 years. We have looked at the implications of changing residual waste frequency, and I'll present those results to you in a moment. I think
are you going to do that again? Has anything changed since the last meeting when you presented?
Not dramatically, no. It's the same pattern as you've seen previously. We have looked at it slightly differently because officers were keen just to understand how much difference would it make if, say, none of the slightly uncertain policies were implemented around the deposit scheme and so forth. There's still a degree of uncertainty there, and I can show you what those results look like. But it's the same pattern that basically more constraint of residual waste leads to higher recycling performance.
Well, yes, obviously. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
That's quite all right. So I will just press on from there. So just on dates, there are new requirements around additional materials that need to be collected. Most of those, the additional metals and subtle trays, those need to be in by 31st of March 2026, although for businesses it's a bit earlier. And then the plastic film is from 2027. The things on the other side, a bit less relevant. You're already doing those things that are in place. And of course, your current collection arrangements for residual waste is in line with the fortnightly minimum that would come in from March 2026. So there's no dramatic implications of those dates for the authority. As I said, we did look at quite a range of options, but they're all quite subtle changes to the authority's current service. So this is our diagram that shows all the different options that were in play. So we always start with a baseline where we start by understanding the system as it currently stands in order to be able to calculate differences from that baseline. We looked at mainly changing the different vehicles. So we looked at a type of vehicle that's used by some other authorities that separate their waste into lots of different streams. An RRV vehicle, which is just a slightly different approach. As an alternative, we looked at your current vehicles have 3 compartments to them, so they're a relatively complicated vehicle. We looked at what would happen if you use slightly simpler vehicles and whether that might work better, whether those vehicles being cheaper would offset there being more of them. And then we did look at what would happen if you kept the current kinds of vehicles but changed your residual waste collections to either 3 weekly or 4 weekly. And sitting alongside all of those, because you can do this change regardless of any other change, and it has pretty much the same effect. We looked at what would happen if you went in the direction of offering garden waste services free of charge, and to try and quantify the cost of that. That's your option 6 there. And what this chart shows you is just the overall high level results. There's a lot of smaller changes, a lot of calculations underlying this, and I won't run you through page after page of this is what it does to trucks and drivers and all sorts. Just to explain where we end up. So you've got your starting point, which is your baseline recycling rate at 52%, and we've now got 2 results for each option. One where all the policies are implemented, and one where the policies aren't implemented. So that's all 3 sets of policies. And the pattern in every case is that if the national government policies weren't to be implemented, if you didn't have to collect the extra materials, then you wouldn't end up with quite as big a recycling rate. And that has the extra materials that the government requires you to collect offsets the loss of materials from the deposit scheme that are coming out from your service. So that's the net effect of those changes. But what you can see is that well, let's start with option 6. It's quite a substantial additional cost to put the garden waste service back onto a free basis. So by our calculations, it costs about £2.4 million per annum to do that. So that what that does is it includes all the costs of the vehicles and crews and the extra staff that need to be put in place to do that. It does give you a small hike in recycling performance, but what we saw at the time when the charge was put in place previously was some of the material moved over into the household waste recycling centres, and so part of the effect of this is that it pulls material back from the HWRC rather than leading to a substantial amount of additional recycling. So there are still some thousands of there's still some tons of material that are going to find their way into your recycling that currently are either being composted at home or that are otherwise being lost from the system. But it's not a dramatic increase based on the estimates that we've used, which are derived from looking at other councils and their situation, trying to compare your situation with theirs. So it's quite a big cost. The other options that we explored, which were around tweaks to different vehicle types, basically those because they're just an adjustment in vehicles, what we'd hoped to see was that some of them might reduce costs for you. They didn't. Your current system is, as far as we can see, the most efficient that we've been able to come up with, the most cost effective we've been able to explore. So we haven't proposed moving away from those. The place where a saving would be available is from options options 4 and 5, which are the 3 weekly and the 4 weekly collections. So what you see in the situation where the policies are implemented nationally is you'd save about £500,000 a year, based on the way that we calculate these things. It's not a great deal of extra saving on the 4 weekly collections, and that's mainly because of the way that the PFI contract works. A lot of these savings are coming out from less material going into the residual waste stream, less having to be paid for, but there is a sort of a floor on the amount of savings you can make from the PFI contract. So 4 weekly doesn't get you an awful lot of extra cash back. It does get you some extra recycling. So the top rate that we can find, and we try to make estimates that are evidence-based and are not over optimistic. The highest number we can get you to is about 60% based on the current collection system. Councillor Abs, shall I revert to you?
Oh yeah, if that's okay. So I don't want to kind of.
That's okay. I've said the things I wanted to say on that slide, so it's a good place to.
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, I'm just really refreshing myself in that everything presented here is with the current PFI contract in place.
Yes.
Therefore, nothing is considered in any of this, which was one of the things you said earlier about going away from separating at source to separating at destination. Is that correct? Have you
yes.
looked at ignoring the PFI contract for the moment? I know that's a little difficult to do, but ignoring that for the moment, have you any numbers that would give us some indication of what things would look like in a scenario where we weren't compromising ourselves because of a PFI contract?
So that is a terrifically difficult question to answer. I think the easier side of it to answer is that your recycling performance probably wouldn't look dramatically different.
So even though places like Wales are touching on the door of 70%, there's something else in the way that they're measuring it that we're not seeing here. Is that right?
So the way Wales does measure it differently. That is an issue. When it comes, you can't do a direct comparison between a Welsh authority recycling rate and an English authority recycling rate. They count a number of things that English authorities don't count towards their household target. They are doing better though than England. It's not all smoke and mirrors and numbers. If you compare them on a like-for-like basis, nation for nation, Wales's household recycling rate is about 56 and a bit percent. England's household recycling rate is about 44%. So it's about a 12 percentage point genuine difference across the two. But some of what then takes you from that 56 to the claimed 67, I think it is now, part of that is non-household waste, and part of that is material that like rubble that is collected at household waste recycling centres, which we wouldn't generally consider to be part of what would go into the recycling statistics.
So if the chairman will allow me to ask one more question.
Very quickly.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Well, given that we are talking about measuring according to the rules.
Yes.
What's the measurement according to reality? In other words, if we just stop measuring it the way the government wants us to measure it, which is fine, that gives us a number, but actually look at what the carbon savings are or not of different options. Are you in a position to provide those to the council, i.e. the reality numbers, ignoring what the government is saying they were doing, but actually doing what we know what we are actually doing?
So generally speaking, and the answer to that is yes, it is possible to do, and you'll see there's a carbon number in the second row underneath the just above the recycling rate. There's a marginal change in carbon. So what you're seeing is that your 3 weekly collection would so your monthly collections would take out about 470 tons of CO2. A lot of what's going on here, though, is a trade-off between different material types that are being collected. So there isn't a direct one-to-one relationship between a ton of anything and CO2. what you are collecting matters. So a ton of metal matters a great deal. So all of the policy options, the ones that are described as policy in here, will look worse on CO2 terms than the current baseline because you're losing all your cans. They're all going into the deposit.
Yeah, so exactly. So the reality is we are still making the saving. It's just not reflected in the number.
Well, it's not coming through your system, and so
yeah, but I mean, I assume someone somewhere,
somebody's making that
go,
saving.
hey,
Exactly.
look, the UK did great.
Yeah.
I guess I'll bring it up at council, the rest of it, but I'm in
Yeah.
favour of going with reality, not with a made up
Sure.
number. So,
Well, the answer is that we can, if we're given an instruction and we can work with officers to define the scope of what's required, we can model most things. It is tricky when it comes to things like the PFI contract because you don't know where you would end up as far as break clauses and early termination costs are concerned, or how to factor that in as a one lump sum. Do you factor that in like over the lifetime of the change that you make? And so trying to put it onto a comparable basis is really tricky.
Yeah, they made it easy for you, haven't they? Thank you, Peter.
Can we move on to the last slides, please? I've got some questions from the room so that they can
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
So just to remind members, this has been a quite engagement heavy process. Working with officers, we've been involved in quite a few different engagement stages, working with Veolia, but also we've done 3 prior engagement sessions with members looking to capture their thoughts about things that should go into the waste strategy. This is my second presentation to this group. We did also a residents engagement workshop to try to get some initial responses from members of the public to the sorts of things we were thinking about and capture their views. And we will continue to engage with Veolia about the changes that can be made as a result of this process. As things stand, our next steps are to finalise the modelling that I've just showed you, the very headline results from. We've got a strategy document that is quite a long way developed, but which we need to put the finishing touches to once decisions have been made that might affect some of the points that might be consulted upon, particularly whether there's any interest in significant changes to the curbside service or whether we stick largely as we are from the public point of view. That then goes to public consultation, so a significant process there for the views of the public on any changes the authority looks to make to be reflected upon. And once those have been considered, and obviously councillors will have their input as well, we'd move towards publication of a revised waste strategy. So that's where we go from here. And that's I'm sure much to the relief of the chair, all that I wish to say. If there are any further questions, please do let me know.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Peter. Yes, we do have some more questions. Councillor Vickers.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Well, mine is more of a sort of layperson response rather than the quite technical questions that you have from Adrian. I mean, it all, just listening to what you have to say, it's all a bit overwhelming, really. I mean, all the degrees in waste management, I'm sure there must be, because it's all so complicated. And what a lot of sort of wasted time and energy, well, not wasted, but waste takes up a lot of time and energy. I mean, my initial thoughts are, one visualizes the extended recycling, sort of street pools and even more bins in front of our houses. I don't know, you talked about combining some things, and we have an awful lot of bins already. Another issue is, our new developments going to be built to accommodate these bins, because at the moment they block our pavements. So I assume we're visualizing that with the extended producer responsibility, that everything will be reduced, and one hopes that will happen and that the two go alongside each other. Public information as well as consultation obviously is really, really important, and I really think that the government should be doing some sort of TV promotion on this. I mean, this is the only way you get your message across. It's all very well for us to sort of send out, put little stickers in our bins, put little messages out online, do what we can, but it doesn't really hit it. You only get people listening, and I think there's been a little bit about litter on the TV, so somebody told me recently with some celebrity or somebody, and that really has had an impact. So I want to see the government doing something, and could you please lobby them or somebody do something about, with all these new regulations and with all the effort that's going into it, let's do something sort of a little bit sort of interesting to get the message across. And included in that message must be reduced. It's not just feeling good about yourself because you put the appropriate thing in the appropriate bin. It's basically reducing it so your local authority is not wasting its money on waste. It's spending it on the services that you really need, that looking after your children, looking after your own people. And really, that's the message you should be getting across to people. And on a sort of local practical note, there's still a lot of cynicism among people about what happens to their waste. You still hear programs, they're going out there saying, oh, it all goes the same way, they don't separate it, it all ends up in the same thing, you go through all this trouble and it all just gets dumped somewhere. Well, I've been fortunate enough with other councillors to go to Padworth and see what happens to our waste, and I was really, really impressed. And I know that the people who work there are trying to produce a little video to circulate to people, and hope people know about that, because they can't really accommodate loads of people wandering all over the site, but they want to get that message across. And I think that's important, that people understand that their waste is separated, that, it is dealt with appropriately, and, I think that's really important that we get rid of that cynicism. So I think that's more or less what I wanted to say. I don't know whether that's really a question or comment, but I'd be interested to hear your response. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll comment briefly that obviously I very much agree with what you say about the need to address cynicism and some I think views that people hold that they find convenient to hold because it means that they don't need to take action. I think that there is a certain amount of self-exculpatory belief that takes hold. You may be pleased to learn that part of what producers of packaging will be required to fund through producer responsibility is greater awareness raising, greater publicity around services. They have an obligation to meet the recycling targets. They also have quite a significantly increased financial incentive to reduce the amount of packaging that they put into the system, because for every ton that they place into the system, they will have to pay the waste management costs of dealing with it once it's reached the end of its life. So I think some of your wishes may be coming true, Councillor Vickers. I can't guarantee all of them, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions in the room? Councillor Carter.
Only very quickly, because I think we might be over time. Just on that income then, so the income potentially, or the cost, the potential income for the council, if I correctly understand it, from the extended producer responsibility relates to the collection costs, the awareness, and the fact that the item itself, depending on how well it's made, will be effectively a penalty, if I understand that correctly. And the second point was on the green waste. You said that the guidance says you can charge, but only up to a point, presumably again on costs. I take it there's no intention to contribute to the green waste collection. Thank you.
To take the second point first, I think you've got that exactly right. There is no expectation that the central government will contribute to the cost. It's just that they've decided not to put in place a restriction that would have led them to have to, because they had changed the rules, would have led them to have to compensate authorities for the lost income. Now they're not going to require you to lose that income. They aren't going to put in any money. On producer responsibility, I think you've described the system accurately. Basically, the way that it's supposed to work is that a new organisation, the scheme administrator, is supposed to tot up the cost of all of the waste collection services across the country. It doesn't just relate to household waste collections, but also collections from litter bins, HWRC packaging, the stuff that's received at HWRCs, and so and even material that might be extracted after material has gone into the residual waste stream. If authorities are using things called mechanical and biological treatment plants, then you may pull out some plastic and metal packaging at that later sorting stage as well. So the idea is that the scheme administrator tots up all the costs of the services that are used for dealing with packaging, and then it finds a way to allocate those across different materials. And the more of a particular material type that a producer places on the market, the bigger the share of the overall cost that it has to meet. And that is intended to be a financial flow from Sainsbury's or Unilever to local authorities. There has been no indication at any point that there would be any corresponding adjustment to any central grants that authorities might receive. So as far as anybody is aware, it is intended as a new income stream. That is, of course, an open question. It's never been suggested that there will be any corresponding reduction in anything else you receive. So our understanding is that that's the intention, that it should be additional and new. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much. Right.
Excellent. Any final questions before we move on to the next item, agenda items? No, I'm just looking on Zoom. I can't see any hands up at the moment. Nothing in the room. Perfect. Thank you very much, Peter, for your presentation this evening.
My pleasure. Good to see you all. Thank you
Very much. Cheers.
Have a good meeting. Bye-bye.
Excellent. So moving on to item 6 then, which is the business decarbonisation for Beenham Solar Farm. I will invite Michael Duper-Miller and Philip Atkinson to present for us.
Good evening. Just a shame Peter's gone. I was going to say thank you very much for the presentation. Would hope to put that down as CPD, but he's gone. Yes, we're just going to be putting it up on the screen if that's okay. Relying on a script. So I just want to make sure it's properly. Someone able to put that up on.
Yeah, bear with me.
When we change slides, I'll just wave a flag or something.
Yeah, sure.
Hopefully we won't have the same sharing
I
channel.
hope not.
Do you want to introduce yourself? What
I thought, yes, what just come up. So I'm Michael, Assistant Plan Development Manager.
It's not on there.
Well, I guess while it comes up, I'll introduce myself nonetheless. So I've been with London for about 2 years or so. My colleague and Estates Director, Philip Atkinson, and we worked together on the developments which we might see tonight for a fair while. It's gone through many iterations, and it's actually very good to finally get to a point where we can present it to the public in about 7.5 minutes.
Have you got it, Kofi, to share? Can you try it? I don't know why it's not letting me. But...
Sorry, yeah, we're still not able to see it. We still can't see it in the room, so apologies to those online. We're just Kofi's going to have a go this time. I'm confident, no pressure. There you go. Excellent.
Yeah, unless you guys want to just read my script.
Close.
I do not understand other presentations.
Did you see that at home, folks?
Oh, amazing. The main thing is to be able to see the images. It's very visual, this presentation. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to present our Beenham Solar project, and hopefully showcasing our commitment to sustainability and carbon reduction. In this presentation, we'll explore the project origins, the challenges overcome, community engagement. I aim to highlight how this project supports both London decarbonisation strategy and the council environmental strategy, contributing to regional carbon neutrality. So just a bit about Grundon. Founded in 1929, Grundon is a leader in the UK waste management industry. We've been at Beanham, the location of this project, for about 50 years, and we've got 18 active sites across the UK with a focus on sustainability and environmental responsibility. We're also engaged in renewable energy and energy waste projects, as you can see from the top image, and we're transitioning our fleet to alternative fuels as part of our commitment to decarbonise. Wow. So this is a drawing, a site layout plan of our proposed 12 to 15 megawatt solar farm, which aligns with local urgent renewable energy needs and council environment strategy. Currently, the council is reviewing this in a second request for planning pre-application advice and an environmental impact assessment or EIA screening opinion. Depending on EIA screening opinion can be found on the planning portal if you want to find out more information about it. So this solar farm is key to our regional carbon neutrality ambitions, decreasing dependency on non-renewable energy and embodying Grundon's commitments to environmental stewardship. Furthermore, the project supports the council environment strategy by bolstering local biodiversity by over 100% on this site and fostering sustainable community practices, which demonstrates Grundon's dedication to regional sustainability. So just to explore why we think this site is suitable or a very good candidate for development, is that you can see it's site industrial history with the proposed application area superimposed. So although you think otherwise, this area is part of the North Wessex Downs area of outstanding natural beauty. This is a key challenge for solar farms due to potential visual impact concerns, meaning solar farms are rare in the AONB, or at least this AONB, ones in memory. However, the site, once a landfill, is now classed as low-grade agricultural land, so it could be considered less visually critical in the AONB context. Furthermore, we've ensured that because of this historic landfill use, we respect existing environmental management protocols and avoid any risk of contamination. Next slide, please. Furthermore, there's benefit to the site in that it's close to many potential high energy demand businesses. This positions the solar farm ideally to supply local entities with green renewable energy, which aligns with Grundon's sustainable energy objectives, while any excess energy generated here, not consumed locally, would be exported to the grid. But please note, we're in very early discussions with these entities, so it's nothing's official as of yet. But just to give a bit of context to the background of the scheme, so we started off with a 25 megawatt solar farm spanning 5 fields, which you can just about see on the red line boundary, just being a bit larger with little offshoots of that of the area. It was designed to efficiently power a single major off-taker. Nonetheless, I mean, facing the environmental sensitivities of the AONB, we sought pre-application advice from the council in the first approach, working with landscape experts to align the project with rigorous environmental and planning requirements. So, but unfortunately, so after initial pre-application feedback from the council, West Berkshire, of course, and considering the AONB location, we downsized the project to 3 fields, as you can see on this landscape plan, which is less than the visual impact on the AONB. Our successful collaboration with AONB Board's planning officer was key to the design's creation, and also reinstating confidence in the project's feasibility. Also, we broadened our team to bringing in renewable planning and technical consultancies to address project complexities. But the main thing here is, as you can see on the two images on the right, we engaged in extensive community engagement by holding a successful event at the Beanham Parish Hall in June to gather public feedback. The constructive responses received were crucial in refining our proposal, ensuring it resonated well with both environmental standards and community needs. So in terms of the project's status, to bring these three fields to a stage where it's producing electricity, is that we've got a critical pre-application site visit meeting next week with key stakeholders, including the case officer and the A&D board's planning officer. So if all things go well, we'll have a formal response from the council by the end of the year. And if that's looking good, we'll be submitting a full planning application by hopefully by the middle of Q1 next year. And we're aiming for a positive decision from the council by the end of 2024. If all goes as planned, construction will commence in Q3 2025, where we'll finally be producing renewable green energy by 2026. Just a final slide just to summarize. So the Beanham Solar Project's alignment with the council's environment strategy from left to right. So we've got carbon neutrality. So our solar farm will directly support the council's 2030 carbon neutrality goal by reducing district-wide carbon emissions. Sustainable energy, aligning with strategy to increase solar energy usage. Our project harnesses renewable sources for local energy needs. Community engagement, we've engaged extensively with the community, ensuring the project aligns with local preferences and sustainability goals. And finally, environmental stewardship. Careful site development enhances local biodiversity, resonating with the council's vision for environmental protection. So, in essence, the Beanham Solar Project reflects our commitment to sustainable, community-focused development, contributing to the council's vision of a sustainable future. Thank you for listening. And any questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Appreciate it. Councillor Martha Vickers, and then I'll come to you, Adrian, Councillor Alex.
Thank you.
Very much, that was very interesting, very encouraging. Obviously, I'm coming quite quickly a little bit, it sounds really good. So, you said the consumption of the electricity from the site will be local, which I would imagine that was something that you put out in your consultation, so that's probably made people more on board, I would imagine. So that means that, will that mean reduced costs to people locally, the ones that are being impacted possibly more by, visually possibly by the site, or does it not work like that? At least it's being consumed locally, but it doesn't affect the cost of their electricity.
No, unfortunately not. The complexities of what it works better when we're supplying the businesses locally. We have through the public engagement events in Beanham, that was a major question is, okay, cool, you're having a solar farm there, how's it going to benefit me? Well, not directly for the costs of energy bills, not knocking any money off there, but it's mainly for the local environment where the lorries, we're aiming for 20 electric HGVs, electric lorries on our site, which are noticeably quieter, have less emission, and again, they're better for the environment, as well as Marley Tiles Factory, who have a lot of big movements as well. And another major part is there'll be over 100% biodiversity net gain, so a massive amount of planting on this, what you can see on screen as a pretty, I mean, that was a week ago I took that photo. That's a pretty desolate looking site. So you'll be having a very nice site to look at, albeit there will be panels on the site. It's hard to minimize the visual impact of that. But the extent of planting which we're putting here, I mean, there's going to be a lot of happy birds and bees on the site. I'm not gonna lie.
I was going to ask about that. So is that wildflowers between the panels, things like that, is it?
Yes, there will be, between panels that, a lot of, mixed scrubby planting, a lot of oaks, in addition to working with a, local green farmers group to plant, black ash, which is a very rare tree, to create a belt of it along the track. I believe, Philip might have something else to mention.
Thank you. So to address your original question, the scheme has been designed so it's our several local business. So we, as well, will never get into business of supplying households because that comes with their huge regulation burden. And the company on our side seems to never be feasible. For the people that we want to supply, I would say the discussions with various names, they're very early, so I don't want to speak for them. But we would need to be supplying them at below grid rate for the buyers, otherwise the grid benefits them. So they will get relatively cheaper electricity, but by us exporting to them, we will get a high rate when we export to the grid. If we put all of the energy straight to the grid, this scheme would not be economic. It's only economic because we can get a premium on the grid rate by supplying directly to the business.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Abs. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Thank you very much. I was, well, you won't hear me if I do that. It may be just me not hearing properly because it's quite faint coming from the chamber at the moment, but I see 12 megawatts on the diagrams, but I'm sure I heard 25 megawatts. Could you just confirm which it is?
Oh, yeah, sure. Apologies. So as you can see on the screen, that area there, the 3 fields, that'd be 12 to 15.
Yeah.
The 25 came in originally where we had 5 fields being developed. So we got, we reduced down following the first pre-application feedback from accounts because of the visual impact on the A and B.
Right. So it's not 25, it's 12.
Yes, it is. It's quite,
Okay, fantastic. Sorry, I thought I was heard you saying 25, but they're saying the diagram said 12. It sounds like I'm maybe not hearing. You are or you aren't connecting to the grid?
we are, yes.
Yeah. Have you applied for that connection yet?
Mm-hmm.
Great. And are you in the queue or have you been awarded?
We're in the queue.
You're in the queue. Okay, thank you very much. So
Are you in the queue?
say again.
Are you in the queue? You sound like you might be decent.
Me? No, I just had Stuart's role a few weeks ago, and I know how difficult it is to get your slot. So,
Oh, yeah.
so that's all there really.
You took my question, Councillor. That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Sorry, Stuart. Now, if you're going to the grid, and your 12 will be easier, I guess, but have you looked at the clipping and whether you need to store energy on site? Is there agri-solar on site at all? How you get? I know you're saying greater than 100% biodiversity net gain, but you also just mentioned black ash being planted on what seems to be the east lane, which won't that cast a shadow over some of your panels?
Great question. Hopefully not. If you look on the screen there, you can kind of see along the western boundary that kind of white track that shows through the middle. You can see where it's a bit discoloured, maybe a bit of a lighter green to the right of it. They're quite linear. Other side. So that's all going to be planted, and that will be a relatively low shrubby planting to purposely avoid overshadowing the panels. If any trees are planted, they'll be further away to avoid that.
Yeah, I assume you're going to be trying to sleeve some of this energy to yourselves for your trucks. Is that part of the purpose here, or?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so in that case, aren't the trucks out in the daytime when the sun's shining?
That's a great point. So that's why we will have battery storage.
Sorry, that you did that. Thank you. So you're going to have some storage on site. That's lovely.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I wish you all the best with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions from the chamber? Anything from Zoom? No, okay, I've got a couple of questions if that's okay. Mostly from the kind of BNG, the biodiversity side, sorry. Obviously I'm going to assume that, I mean, 100% sounds amazing, but I'm gonna hazard a guess that it's quite a fairly low baseline because it's landfill. Is that a fair question, fair answer?
Yeah, that is, yeah.
And obviously you talked a little bit about what you're putting on the site. Do you know what was at the site beforehand? Because I think it's quite good when we do these things to complement what was on the existing land before it was converted to industrial usage. Do you know what was at the site prior to landfill?
So the landfill was created by the excavation of the sands and clays. Which
See if I can do it, because I'm glad people can hear you through the thingy clip. That's fine. Thank you.
So the landfill went into the excavation led by the winning of the sand and clay, which went to the tile works next door. Prior to that, it was agricultural land.
Okay, so actually it goes back a long way then before industry kind of took over. Okay.
Yeah, it's, it was excavated post-war. So there's a long history of, quarrying and landfilling on the side. The landfill there closed in around late 90s.
Yeah, 95.
Yeah, 1995. And then it was restored to the land form that you see now. So it's, let's put it this way, the BNG on that site is richer than if it was agricultural land at the moment.
Really, in its current state?
Yeah, so the land's had a classification on it, so it's great for agricultural land, which is really bad for agricultural production, so you can do. It's pretty good for biodiversity again, because it's good soils.
Yeah.
So it's low, but it's still much richer than the agricultural land which surrounds it.
Thank you, excellent. Councillor Sumner.
Thank you, Chair. Just for transparency and completeness of information, I think really we probably ought to declare an interest, and probably Councillor Mays, although I'm not going to speak for him, because we're on the Eastern Area Planning Committee, and at the moment this is quite a planning centric presentation that we've received in the main. So I'd just like it for public record now, and we'll need to do the same again when it comes to the planning meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Sumner. And Councillor Mays. You're muted at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. The situation is or will be going to the Eastern Area Planning when it gets that far. But we're talking early part of next year, presumably then. But I have no preconceived over this area. But I do recall that the Eastern Area gave the permission for the site at the bottom right hand side of my screen at the moment, the grey area. That's the scaffolding and transit work storage that we passed maybe 4 years ago. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mays. Any other questions? Okay, in that case, thank you very much, folks, for your presentation this evening. Very interesting. I wish you good luck with the project. Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellent. Okay, so moving on to item 7 then, which is Nick Swift from Hydrogen Afloat Limited. You're going to present around the Padworth Hydrogen Hub proposal. So I will hand it over to Nick. Yeah.
Sorry, Kofi, I'm looking to you again to share. That's okay. Thank you.
Kofi's just going to bring up the slide deck. And then you get one. Thank you for that.
So thank you, councillor Gawdy, for the invite to present to the meeting this evening. We started with a letter that I wrote to you about 6 weeks ago with an idea which happens to be very similar to the discussion that we've just heard about the site in Padworth. So I think it's very useful that we're both talking about the same area. So hopefully everyone can see that on the screen. So my name is Nick Swift. I have a small company in West Berkshire called Hydrogen Afloat. And my presentation this evening is around the Padworth Hydrogen Hub proposal. Next slide, please. Okay. So firstly, this evening, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. Then I'm going to talk about hydrogen. And then we'll get on to the specifics of the Padworth Hydrogen Hub proposal and hopefully some discussion. So Nick Swift, chartered mechanical engineer. My day job is in the railway industry. I'm employed by the private part of the rail industry on rail vehicles. So I deal with electric trains, battery trains, hydrogen trains, and diesel locomotives in my day job. But outside of that, I have an interest in living afloat. I live on the Kennington Canal, which I've lived on for the last 15 years. And so I suppose I'm a floating boater as far as West Berkshire is concerned. So I do know the West Berkshire area and the area around Padworth particularly well. And it's an area that I enjoy living in. So my small startup business is around using hydrogen fuel cells for living at home. So I'm one of the few people in the UK that lives by hydrogen drive electricity. And I'm interested in trying to get hydrogen adopted more widely. There's a lot of interest in it globally. Part of this is about creating local sources of hydrogen as well as some of the larger national schemes. So why hydrogen? We have plenty of energy. There's more energy lands on the Earth's surface from the sun in one day than mankind has used in the whole of existence. We've relied in the past upon the natural biological processes to collect that energy, plants growing, animals feeding on plants, and then the geological processes, those organisms dying and forming fossil fuels. In the last 200 years, we have benefited from those fossil fuels and dug them out of the ground, reburned them to create our energy that we live by. Unfortunately, we're becoming increasingly aware that the carbon that's released as part of that process, getting access to that energy, is upsetting the natural balance in our environment and leading to global warming. In the last 25 years, we've started to become very much more efficient, taking the energy directly from the sun, whether that be through solar panels, as we just heard, the presentation by our colleagues along the way, or through wind turbines, where we're picking up the winds as a result of the weather system, which is driven by the global warming of the sun. We can take these renewable forms of electricity and we can store them. There are two ways of storing electricity. We can store it as electrons by putting it into batteries, or we can take energy and split water to form hydrogen and oxygen. So we store it as molecules. So we could regard that as green molecules or green electrons. And there are advantages to both. If you've got a relatively small power demand, then you put it into a battery, because that's a very efficient way of storing electricity chemically and easy to get it out when you need it. But the problem is that batteries get bigger, they get heavier, and they're reliant upon rare earth metals. And we have a limit to how much material is in the earth to make batteries work. So increasingly people are looking at hydrogen, because hydrogen is an effective, safe way of storing energy. We can take the energy from a Sunday afternoon and store it for use on Tuesday morning. So it's about trying to find new zero carbon methods of storing energy. And that is part of our carbon future. So what can we do with it? Well, we can put it into vehicles.
create hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. We can also put it into vehicles that burn hydrogen, as JCB are doing, so we can take existing internal combustion engines and convert them to either run partially or wholly on hydrogen. And we can make sustainable fuels like aviation fuels and hydrogen as well. The advantage of hydrogen is that it is quick to refuel. So unlike batteries where vehicles have to stand for long periods of time to recharge, you can generally refuel a vehicle in 15 to 20 minutes. And it's a one-to-many infrastructure. So if you have 10 road vehicles which are battery charged, you might need 10 chargers. If you then multiply that by a further 10 to 100, you need 100 chargers. Whereas if you have 10 vehicles and you have a fueling station, if you then have 100 vehicles, you only still need one fueling station. So whilst there is an initial outlay on hydrogen infrastructure, in the longer term, it can provide a much more cost-effective means for managing larger fleets. And arguably, it has a lower long-term degradation risk. We know that batteries have a limited life, about 10 years, possibly more, as the technology improves. But at some point, the battery needs to be sent for recycling. Whereas with fuel cells, at the moment, the predictions are that the life will be longer and the amount of material being placed will be less at any point in the future. So turning to Padworth itself, so just to remind those, if anyone is not certain where Padworth is, it is the eastern end of our county, just down the road from here towards Reading. And go to the next slide. So to look at this particular area, what we have so firstly, we have a large council-owned site, the integrated waste facility at Padworth. This has a large depot-based fleet of refuse trucks. I believe you also have some of your sweepers and some other vehicles there. Not far away, just on the hill at Padworth, is the fuel depot, which is a high coma site. It's part of the National UK Strategic Fuel Reserve. I believe it has aviation oil and aviation fuel oil there. It's run by a company called Exolum, and they are a French organisation who are quite heavily into hydrogen. They've done a lot of schemes with local councils in mainland Europe on hydrogen. And a high coma site is a site where there is a high hazard present, and therefore there are the controls in place to manage a high hazard site. So it has fencing, it has a warning system, and everyone living within a 5 mile area is briefed about what to do if the warning system goes off. It is a large site and it's a secure site. It has space for solar. And there is an existing pipe route between that site and the integrated waste facility in Padworth. Because next to the integrated waste facility is the old railway sidings which used to take the tanker trains, be able to offload the fuel to be taken up to the tanks at this site. We've heard about Marley already this evening. Marley has a site just to the north of the A4, which has a demand for heat. I suspect they're probably burning quite a lot of fossil fuel at the moment, fossil gas, which is heat, used for the tire manufacturing. Near the A4, so we have some passing traffic, the number 1 bus getting past, for example, which should be converted to hydrogen. And we also have some renewable hydropower potentially available. So just at the end of Mill Lane in Padworth, at the moment there is a 30 kilowatt Archimedean screw turbine, which is privately owned by the car. But there is space next to that that would potentially enable a second machine to be installed. And the good thing about hydro renewable is it runs 24/7. So whereas solar has very peak demand, the renewable from water gives you a nice concentration. There is a second fleet of vehicles nearby, which is the boat fleet that's operated by ABC Marine.
There's 25 boats that go out on a weekly hire basis, which are all diesel operated. So if we were to take some form of proposal forward, there would need to be some stakeholder consultation. There would need to be a feasibility stage, some procurement, some construction, and some operation. There's lots of government support for this type of local scheme. So, for example, the Innovate UK KTN network has a net zero places innovation network, which is specifically set up for local authorities to share best practice and look at place-based solutions. So that has opportunities to connect with other councils. It can address particular challenges around PFI deals, contracts, templates for procurement, new vehicles, that type of thing, sharing best practice. And moving something forward like this would require some form of feasibility study, which would look at the existing contracts, which are around emergency and look at vehicle leasing options, grant support, total cost of operations and the business plan. And having a source of solar power available locally, perhaps through a private wire network rather than having to link into the national grid, would potentially improve that business case. Just looking quickly at what's being done in the UK on refuse collection vehicles. The first hydrogen fuel cell refuse collection vehicle was in Aberdeen. It's one of a fleet of 84 vehicles that are currently in Aberdeen, which are hydrogen powered. Aberdeen is very much leading the charge in the hydrogen sector in the UK. There's 10 refuse vehicles that are going into St Helens near Liverpool. There was a proposal to look at Glasgow, but they in the end decided to go with battery electric refuse vehicles because their length of their route is so short, being a city. You can use a battery electric vehicle for that, but hydrogen probably needed for the next duty stuff that we have in West Berkshire. So potentially could West Berkshire. Thank you. Have any questions?
Thank you very much, Nick, for that presentation. It's certainly an interesting, interesting concept and idea. So thank you for bringing it to the EAG this evening. Are there any questions from the room?
No. It sounds great. Sounds interesting. I don't know. Have we started thinking about? I know we had a discussion about our fleet of waste vehicles, didn't you? Not long ago. Was that around electric charging, or so? Are we sort of anywhere down the line considering it?
Yeah, this sounds to be slightly sooner than our fleet replacement, the imminent one would allow. But looking at your timeline, it could be in play for when we're due to renew in 2032. And by then the technology might have been more proven in the UK. So definitely something that we can talk about and keep in touch and see how we can take it forward if we can play the right hurdles, procurement and everything else.
Excellent. Councillor Abs.
Yeah, thanks. I think I caught Kofi's answer there, but it's saying that at some point in the future, remind me, Kofi, isn't I think it's the order that's being placed for vehicles at the moment is for they have about a 7-year life cycle, and it would be, well, this won't be ready anywhere near before when the vehicles are needed, so it won't be for the major fleet. But there was the possibility, I think, of the road sweepers and some smaller vehicles. Now, the gentleman just showed a couple of examples, but they were big waste vehicles. Do you know of do you know of vehicles that do street sweeping around town centres? Either things that would come in the right time frame.
Yes, I think just on the fourth slide, I had some pictures of some of the other vehicles that you can get. So,
oh, sorry, I must have missed that one. I do apologise.
There's an organisation called Hydrogen Heroes, which is a site which has
there you go. Yeah.
links of different vendors' products. So yeah, there are street sweepers, there are the conventional vans, small trucks and lorries, the sort of vehicles you use for picking up materials and running around, sort of 7.5 ton trucks, those types of things. There's actually a company in Shoeburyness called Teva who make battery trucks 7.5 tons with a fuel cell range extender. So there's lots of products coming onto the market. So yes, these schemes, they do take some time, don't they, to put together. And I think we're all aware of the planning constraints and the process of consulting a large number of stakeholders. But the thing about Padworth, it does seem to have some of the key sort of components of this already there. And with the hope this evening soon going to have its own solar panel park. But you know, there are local demands for energy and for heat. There are local resources and there's some infrastructure which is sort of laying unused. And so bringing all those together in some form of feasibility study with the support will be, I think, a good first step.
Thank you. Sorry, Jeff, do you mind if I ask one more question? I can see you've got your hand up there.
No, that's all right. Carry on.
No, thanks. Well, obviously, the question in my head is potentially we have some use within the district. That's good. There is an amount of hydrogen you can produce, I assume, given this scheme. Do those two numbers match? And you've mentioned solar, but and hydro actually. Is that still waiting for interested parties to give you the green energy to be able to produce the green hydrogen?
So I think if you look at the water power that's available, I think you would be able to produce about 10 kilos an hour from the water power that's available on the Kennet. So about 240 kilos a day, which probably isn't enough to run all of your fleets, but it would give you a certain percentage of that, and then you can top it up with the solar.
No, this is how do you eat an elephant, isn't it? You take a bite at a time. So nobody's expecting an instant change. So
yeah, absolutely. And the cost of green hydrogen at the moment is around 25 to 30 pounds a kilo bought in bulk. I pay for grey hydrogen VOC at 140 pounds a kilo. And by 2030, people are predicting it'll be down to 2 or 3 pounds a kilo. So we are right at the cusp of this taking off in a very big way. But the sort of open market hasn't yet really taken hold. But yeah, I think there's sufficient energy available locally. If you've got 12 megawatts of solar, then you can put a 1 megawatt electrolyzer in. And that would produce around 380 kilos a day of hydrogen, which would probably be more than sufficient for the London fleet if there would be hydrogen trucks, the local bus and your.
it does strike me that you could have had a chat with Grundon, the people before, because they've got the issue of they're talking about batteries, but
We've solved problems, built bridges to see.
Yeah, good to meet everyone this evening, and also Peter Jones and the whole waste strategy is very interesting.
I'm just going to Councillor Mays quickly for his question, because we are running out of time this evening slowly but surely. So I'll bring in Jeff quickly.
Yeah, thank you very much. The question I was going to ask is, what was the power from the hydropower on the stream that goes across? Sorry, not on the Kennet Canal itself, but on the stream to the south.
Yes.
How much? What was the power you were going to generate there?
It's the Kennet River that goes.
Well, the Kennet River there's the Kennet and there's the Kennet Canal,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about the stream that comes in between Aldermaston and Brimpton.
Yeah,
There was one. How many kilowatts was that, or megawatts?
So I think you just look at the Kennet River. So the Kennet Nathan Canal is a canalised river. So the sections of canal and sections of the river. The section of river at the end of Padworth Lane
currently has a Archimedean type steam turbine, which.
Yeah, what's the power of that
That's
screw?
30 kilowatts.
30
output.
kilowatts.
30 kilowatts of output.
Okay.
Of that power station, but there is a space beside it and quite a significant flow, particularly in winter, that you could probably put a second 30 kilowatts of generation, and then you could run a private wire from that to the site.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the electricity. I'm talking about the water power in that stream.
Yeah.
It's not very much, I don't think.
It's not a massive amount, but it's enough.
No, I mean, I drive over it between my home here in Mortimer and Newbury over the little bridge.
Yeah,
and there's not at times there's no water there at all, or hardly any.
It is the river, not the stream. So it's the Kennet River that I'm talking about.
And I'm not talking about the Kennet. I know the Kennet very well. I'm a hydrologist and an irrigation engineer. I know my water, but that stream is very, very fluctuating. It gets a flood flow occasionally in the winter and after a storm, but in the daytime, the normal flow is very, very low.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Concerned about that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mays.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
Any others? Kofi?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make your views on the biggest obstacles you see to moving this concept to actual implementation.
I think it's probably the large number of stakeholders and bringing together disparate parties in a common cause, isn't it? And I think that's really what some of these schemes that the government is trying to support local authorities with. So, for example, today is the opening of the Transport Decarbonisation Demonstrator Fund by Innovate UK. Up to £2 million available for local authorities and businesses to work together on place-based solutions. And that talks about the local authorities' capacity to support schemes and the senior LA commitment. So I think it's about working together to try and piece together very many component parts and then come up with a feasible scheme that will work from a financial and environmental perspective.
Thank you very much. Any final comments or questions from around the rest of the group online? No. Okay, nothing else.
Sorry, can I just
Go on.
I'll pass my business card across to you and you can take these from there.
Thank you very much. Marvellous. In that case, thank you very much again, Nick, for coming along to present your proposal this evening. It's really interesting and one that, yeah, Senator Kofi look forward to talking more about it in the future. Thank you very much for that. Thank you. So that takes us to item 8, which is the environment delivery update. And Jenny Graham, I believe, is going to introduce this for us.
Thank you, Chair. There are some slides which would be great if they can be shared. If you need me to do them, let me know and I'll try and do that. Good evening, everyone. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Jenny Graham. I'm the Environment Delivery Manager at the Council. I've just put together a few slides for this evening to provide a bit of an update on things that are happening across the Council and with my team. They are, I have done this with you members in mind, but also with those that might be watching this in the future, the recording of this on YouTube. So selected things that I think will be of interest. So I think we're nearly there.
I reckon we should make everyone act it out in like shadow puppets next time to this.
I'm going to start talking whilst the slides come up. So since, oh great, thanks Kofi. We can head on to the next slide. Since we last met, we have published the annual update on our environment strategy, and that went to the executive on the 2nd of November. It will be available on the website, I think, tomorrow, using that link. It contains a huge amount of information as a summary of what has been delivered over the period July 2022 to July 2023. So hopefully it's a really good source of information to give a good overview. Importantly, it also provides updates on not only the district's carbon emissions and figures that we get from government reporting on that, but also the council's own carbon footprint. And that's what you can see on the screen at the moment. There's a graph there showing our carbon emissions from the baseline of 2019-20 through to the latest figures for 22-23. So you'll see that from the highest point on the baseline, it then reduced quite a lot in 2020-2021, which will be of no surprise because that will be the year impacted by COVID. So a lot of things were locked down, a lot of activities were not happening, which is why, as no surprise again, it went up in 2021-22 as things opened up and activities were happening again and buildings were operating as normal. But then the latest figures show that we are on the way back down and very close to actually the levels we saw during the COVID year. So that's a bit of a summary of our own carbon footprint, and a lot of the projects that we're involved with currently are aimed at trying to obviously reduce that as much as we can on our pathway to net zero. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to mention the Enterprise Car Club that currently operates in Newbury Town Centre area. There's a few updates in relation to the car club that I thought would be worth mentioning, and also just as a reminder that the car club exists and to encourage people to sign up if that's relevant for you for the Newbury area at the moment. There's been a change in the space that the car club vehicle uses in 8 Bells car park. It was really tucked away in quite a corner of the car park that was a bit difficult for users to access. So it's now been moved, much easier to access. So I hope that will be an improvement to members of the car club. There's also going to be a car relocated to Station Road, just south of Newbury Railway Station. Not sure of the timings of that, but that is planned as a better location than where it is currently. We're also planning to launch a car in Hungerford as soon as possible and looking at other locations such as Thatcham. So if any members or anybody wants to have discussion in terms of other future locations, then we're really open to that, and Enterprise also are open to have discussions around that. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of feedback. And a plug for our e-cargo bikes. One of them is being used in the Tilehurst area. It's been nicknamed the Beast of Tilehurst, and as you can see from the photos, it's being used by a community cafe to transport goods, so they can be mobile, they can pick up supplies, they can do deliveries. So the bikes are electric bikes. They have a large container, as you can see, that can be used to transport goods, move equipment around. Another one is being used in the Newbury Thatcham area, I think, for local music classes. So the musical equipment gets transported around in one of the e-cargo bikes. There is one e-cargo bike that is not currently being used. So if you are aware of any businesses or community uses that this might be appropriate for, then please get in touch, and there's an email address on the slide. These bikes have been given to us. We submitted a bid, so we got a grant for these to be provided, and we are currently providing them to support local businesses, community uses, to operate in a sustainable way, and they're currently being offered for free. Next slide, please. I just wanted to give an update since we last met. 22 new charge point bollards have been installed. These are focusing on residents who do not have access to off-street parking. So they're parking on the street and are able to charge using these bollards. So 22 have been installed in addition to those that existed. So we've got a provision of 57 currently. Further points will be delivered by the end of March, so this financial year, and there's funding available for more locations in future years. So there's an email address on the slide, and ideas or requests for future locations can be sent to us there. So that's just a bit of an update on that. Last time I did mention this trial of channels across the pavement, again to support residents who might be able to have a charge point but do not have that access to off-street parking. So this is a way in which they too can be parked on the highway and still charge their vehicles. So we will be able to provide some feedback at a future open forum as to how this trial has worked out once we've got some good feedback. Currently it's being trialled in Newbury, Kintbury and Calcott. Next slide, please. I also just wanted to mention there's lots of work going on, going back to our carbon footprint, lots of work going on relating to decarbonising our own estate, and we're at the procurement stage for a couple of projects, one looking at increasing the sites where we have rooftop solar PV, and also another where we are looking to develop some heat decarbonisation plans. So looking at detail as to how we can achieve that at one leisure centre and 4 schools that have been selected for us to do this work first. We're also looking at other sites to deliver these programmes, and we're looking at future funding, future procurement plans. So there's quite a lot of work going on there as well. And a little plug for the West Berkshire Town and Parish Climate Forum, which is a great group, really supportive, good source of information. Our next meeting is 13th of December. So if members, any of your parish councils, town councils are not yet linked in with that, then I would recommend that if they can, they link in with that group, and I can provide more details. There's also details on our Green Hub, which is our main area on the West Berkshire website, and there's a link there as how to get to that, where there's lots of other information, and we're going to be developing that as the weeks and months go by. Email address there to get in contact with my team, and also just a reminder for our environment newsletters and some interesting blogs that can be accessed via the Green Hub as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for the presentation and the great updates around what's going on around the council. Question from Councillor Bennyworth, if you would like to come in, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Jenny, and thank you very much for your presentation. I just want to ask you probably know what I'm going to ask. This evening's meeting here coincides with a Hungerford meeting of the Highways and Transport, their Highways and Transport Committee meeting, and the perennial question from Hungerford is electric chargers and when and where they're going to be installed. Are we any further down the line with that, please?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Bennyworth. And yes, I was expecting you to ask me that question. So we should be able to provide you very soon with information about the award of a contract, because it's the procurement mainly that has been the delay recently. So we should be able to let you know who has won the contract to deliver our charging points that are in car parks and other community areas. So that's a different contract to the ones that are delivering the on-street charging points. So we've been through that exercise, and I would imagine in the next few days we'll be able to let you know who's got that contract. The area of Hungerford is highlighted and has been highlighted all along in that procurement process as being a priority for delivery in this new contract. So I can't give you definite timescales yet because they haven't been discussed with the contractor, but I can assure you you're there as a priority for Hungerford.
They'll be very pleased to hear it. Thank you very much.
Very much. So I will come to you, Councillor Mays, whilst we're on Zoom, and I'll do the Zoom questions first, and then I'll come. Councillor Mays.
Good, thank you very much. Jenny, can you tell me any advanced programming for the Bloomfield Hatch at Wokefield solar farm? I've not heard anything on the system since, well, way back.
Oh, okay. So plans are progressing. Plans are progressing there. I think we are on track, and John will correct me if I'm wrong. I think we're on track for starting delivery in 2025. Is that right, John?
Well, we're looking to have completed, very early 2025.
Yeah.
So we'll start the procurement in the new year, and start the build hopefully sort of late summer, I would have thought.
Sorry, late when, John?
Late summer, Jeff.
Late summer next year, 24.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jenny. That's fine.
Thank you, Councillor Mays. Councillor Abs.
Yeah, hi Jenny, how you doing? Just a quick one. If I've understood your numbers correctly.
I'm a camera.
Sorry, Jeff. Oh, right. Okay, sorry. I think the numbers show that you're currently 18% down in the 3 years since the delivery plan has been going, but this is very much for the council's own number. It's not for the district, is it? First question. Second question is, if we linearly draw that out, we get another 48% by the time with the 2030 target. So 66% overall if we're on the current pace. The solar farm that we were just talking about was originally going to be Slieve to Aldermaston, I believe. I think that was what was passed at exec anyway. I'm not sure that's happening anymore. So it will actually start to contribute to the West Berkshire Council's own carbon offsetting target. Is that enough to make the difference up by itself? Or have we still got to do a lot more work as far as you're concerned? And do you think there's enough things in the pipeline to do it yet? That's a horrible question to ask.
That's okay. Thank you for the multiple questions. So the latest figure for for West Berkshire Council is 15% reduction from our baseline of 1920. You're right in that that the solar farm will have a big contribution to make to the future progress, as will a number of the significant projects that we're planning currently. So the solar PV that will go across our estate over the next few years. There are a number of other things in the pipeline as well. So there's a number of things that will feed into our pathway to net zero. It's been accepted all along that there will need to be some offsetting activity. But obviously what we're trying to do through developing the programme and refocusing the delivery plan for the environment strategy is to reduce as much as possible by the 2030 target. And then we will know how much we need to offset. We are currently looking at how we can track that and take the impacts that we're planning these projects will have, because I know that people want to see that pathway and they want to see where we're going, how quickly we're going to get there, and how much offsetting will be needed. So I'm really aware that people want to see those figures. What we want to do is be able to as close as possible, predict how the programme will pan out and how we'll be able to see that pathway and where the gaps are, whether they're funding or significant other projects. We are currently going through a process of allocating carbon impacts to the delivery plan, and using that as you know, using that to help refocus what we do and prioritise those projects that will have the biggest carbon impacts most quickly.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abs and Jenny. Councillor Vickers.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. That all sounds sort of encouraging. Lots of different projects. Good to have updates on them. Just a couple of questions. Obviously, the new electric charging points, that's good, but you didn't mention where we're going with dedicated spaces for charging points. Is that still something that we're discussing, and have we got many of those? I know it's a little bit controversial, but there's not much point in having a charging point if you can't park in it to charge. Good to hear about the car club, and that obviously you've had feedback about locations. I'm assuming you're changing them because you're looking to increase the usage of the car club. So I don't know where we're going with promoting that, and you know, is that something that council maybe could be assisting with? And good to hear about the cargo bags. Didn't know about those, so they sound really interesting. And the last question I've got is on the Climate Forum membership. I mean, this is a good little group, and good to hear you're finding it valuable. But I have asked, and I'm still not clear about this, why other members of the area, of the district, who are connected with different groups involved in climate change issues, who aren't actually parish councillors, could they be included in this group? I have asked, and I was just told it's just for parish councillors. Is there any way of, I mean, you don't have to answer this totally now, but can we consider looking at that membership? We have a lady in the room, she'll sit behind me, who I think would be interested in being part of that. And I think you get even more interesting input if you've had a few people who are also involved in the local area in climate change.
Thank you, Councillor Vickers. I'll probably do those in reverse order. So the Town and Parish Climate Forum, it is just for town and parish councils. We want it to be a focus group. We want it to be relevant for those town and parish councils. And we think that that's the best way that it will work. This meeting that we're out at this evening, opening up the Environment Advisory Group to make this open forum, we're hoping we'll catch those other environment groups across the district and give them a forum to engage with as well. So hopefully that will pick up on other interest groups. And also I'm aware that there are others such as the Green Exchange that exist in the district as well. So we're not trying to ignore or not engage with those other groups, but we do see their value in being just a focus group for parish and town councils so that they can exchange ideas and they're all working in the same environment with the same restrictions and opportunities. That's not to say that if one of those groups wanted to present to town and parish councils, that is definitely something that we could consider, that they could come along and present to them with ideas, opportunities or partnership working. That would be absolutely fine. The car club, I think you were talking about how we market that and how that progresses. I know there was a meeting last Friday and discussions around how we promote it more are happening. And yes, if members are able to help us with that, that would be great. And as the car club expands into different areas, then we'll be engaging with those town and parish councils that are relevant to those areas. But obviously currently it's just operating in the Newbury central area. In terms of the electric vehicle charge points and dedicated bays close to those points, I know that there were trials planned for that. I don't have information as to how that's gone, where they have started, but we can get that information to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lucas. Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Carter.
Yeah, sorry, just a quick one. Trying to keep off ward matters specifically, but as Councillor Bennyworth raised it, can you just confirm, Jenny, that the next contract, which I think is with a different supplier, but is also like the previous one for streetlight based charging, and does it also cover car park charging? And is Mortar and Burfield on that list that you just mentioned a second ago?
I will have to check where the locations are for the next delivery, for the on street and then also for the off street charging. So if you want to drop me a line, then we can look at that and I can give you feedback on that.
Okay, just on the off, is the technology basically the same as the previous contract though on those as well?
The on street charging, that contract is with Ubitricity, so I believe that is the same that we've had before. The car parks, that will be a new supplier.
Got it, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments from around the room and from online? Yeah, sure, go for it.
Hi, Jenny. Hi, Brendan. So you mentioned about the environment strategy 2020-2030. Is it still the ambition to wholly decarbonise by 2030, or did I mishear something that it may not be that anymore?
So the council's target is to be net zero by 2030, and in terms of the whole district, we are looking to facilitate, encourage as much as we can that the pathway to net zero. I think it's accepted that as a district we won't get there by 2030, but to carry on supporting and facilitating and encouraging and doing what we can as a local authority to help the district on its pathway to net zero, but with an acknowledgement that we don't see that happening by 2030.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. It's a very ambitious target, and I mean, more as we said today, there's a lot of steps in the right direction. Quite amazing, very impressive. And one last question: the Bloomfield hatch, is that correct? Is that the most recent solar farm which went in as behalf of council? Is that correct?
Sorry, I'm having a bit of difficulty hearing from the chamber.
Sorry, just a question about the Bloomfield hatch solar farm. Was that the council solar farm which went in?
Yes. Yes, so that's a solar farm proposed on council-owned land that we have got planning permission for. We achieved the planning permission in September 2022.
Okay, and that was to power the AWE site.
One option was for us to look to supply AWE with the energy. That may or may not happen. So we are planning to go ahead with the solar farm, and it may or may not be supplying AWE. That's yet to be decided.
Okay, thank you.
Marvellous. If there are no other questions from around the room, online, no, that's good. In that case, we will move over to Daniel Warren and the waste and Christmas, New Year, New Year service updates, please.
Oh yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, just a quick update on what we're doing as part of the waste team leading up to Christmas. So we always try to promote everyone to waste less during Christmas. We estimate about 30% extra waste is produced during the Christmas period. So we provide a website which you can see at the top there with some hints and tips to help people reduce, reuse and recycle. Everything from food waste to wrapping paper, Christmas trees, Christmas jumpers, etc. And one big question or top hot topic during Christmas is what to do with wrapping paper. Do we recycle it or not? We always try to let people know about the scrunch test. And there's a little video on the website or a web address at the top of the page you can watch. But basically, if you scrunch the paper and it stays scrunched, you can recycle it. So long as it's not covered in glitter, ribbon and sellotape. And we also provide some extra bins at our household waste recycling centres after Christmas period, so people can recycle their wrapping paper. And so collections, unfortunately with the bank holidays, we do need to change some of our collection days following Christmas. So all is as normal up to the 22nd of December. But from then onwards, we will have some revised collection days. We'll be advertising these on bin hangers, which will be going out on black bins from next week. On our website are many of our different e-newsletters that we send out on our social media platforms, and we'll also let the parishes know as well, so they can circulate that message. And collections will be back to normal on Monday, the 15th of January. And then finally, garden waste. So our paid for garden waste service, we do have a planned suspension between the 25th of December and the 8th of January. Just helps to free up more drivers' vehicles to make sure we can collect all the extra rubbish and recycling and food waste that's produced during the festive period. But when the service does resume after the 9th of January, we will collect 3 extra open top bags of garden waste if you're doing gardening during that period. We just ask that they are reasonable size bags. We don't accept that's not 3 extra bags of hippo size bags. It's just 3 normal sacks. Yeah, and that was really a really quick update. So yeah, please check out our website for hints and tips on how you can reduce, reuse and recycle at Christmas.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I think it's important. I know Martha's talked about the reduce bit, and that is a key element to improving our situation overall. So yeah, good opportunity to remind, especially at 30% extra wasted over Christmas. It's quite a statistic that I wasn't that aware of, to be fair. I knew it was a lot, but I wouldn't have said 30%. So yeah, interesting. Thank you for that, Daniel. Any questions or comments from the group at all? Online, any questions, comments? No. Cool. Okay. In that case, thank you very much to Daniel and Jenny and all of our presenters this evening. That's much appreciated. Item 10 is AOB. Any AOB from the group at all? No.
I think you wanted, I haven't got any at the moment, but you want suggestions for future topics.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Like us all to have a little think.
Yeah, have a little think about any opportunities to bring folks into the EAG for sure.
If I may, I'm one of about 150 households in West Berkshire, I estimate, that live afloat. At the moment, our waste services are being provided by Canal Rivers Trust, which regularly gets overfilled by people who are not boat owners, just dumping rubbish in it. Local residents, small businesses, anybody who's passing by. The only recycling we have is one small glass bin in the location I'm at the moment, but that is quite unusual. Everywhere else it is a standard red paper bin, and it all goes in the waste. I actually end up by walking into your Packworth site to the back door in effect and putting my waste in your collection on site because I want to be socially responsible and recycle properly. But maybe a discussion with Canal Rivers Trust about how the council and they could work together on providing facilities for 150 households who at the moment have no provision at all.
Thank you for that. Only one small piece of AOB for me, and I know that Adrian's gone, but it was just to thank Councillor Abs for his time as the portfolio holder and chair of EAG, and also being kind of the first AG group to really become an open forum. And I think that's a really important point to kind of highlight, and to pass my thanks to him for his work over the last 6 months and the previous 4 years prior. In terms of future meeting dates, so we do have 2 further dates penciled in, which is normally the final Monday of the month. So, but every other month, if that makes sense. So bi-monthly. So the 2 dates that we have currently are the 29th of January and the 25th of March. But I did want to raise the topic of the day, because I've had a few people now go, well, actually Mondays aren't particularly great because it clashes with a lot of parish or town council meetings. And a few other folks have said the same thing. So I just wanted to gauge a bit of opinion around the room around, is Monday the right day? Stephen and I were briefly looking at the kind of calendar earlier, and the only other nights that avoid other regular committee like WAP and EAP and full council, etc., would be a Tuesday. I mean, I don't know if there's any particular feeling around the room on the day. Councillor Vickers?
Well, as long as it finishes sort of 7-ish, I think, you know, I think Parish Council, well, maybe some of them are 7, I don't know, but I would have thought most of 7. But it doesn't really affect me particularly, so maybe I should see whether anybody else wants to come.
Councillor Carter?
I have a slight preference for Monday, if I'm honest, but probably could tolerate Tuesday, but yeah, Monday's good. In our patch, council meetings tend to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays, yeah. That parish council is back.
Right, yeah, cool, thank you. Any comments from online or Councillor Nays?
Yeah, Monday's better for me. Tuesday's not so good in this area, in that several of the small parishes have Tuesdays as their preference day for parish council meetings.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, just say Councillor Paul has said to Metro, I think she just left, to say that Tuesdays work for her, so it's going to be a tricky one.
It's always tricky.
yeah, it's always a meeting, right? Cool. Okay. Perhaps we'll send something out to the whole group and get a wider pool of answers, and then come to a decision further on. But at the moment, the two that are penciled in is the 29th of January 2024. I wrote 2023 down, but it is 2024, I can assure you. And then the following one currently the 25th of March 2024. Sorry, Councillor Carter.
So I think you find it's the 27th that Monday on January. Unless I've got my calendar wrong.
I've looked at my terrible handwriting, actually, I
think it's the Monday, the 27th. I'm sorry, I think the Monday is the 27th. Oh, beg your pardon.
Definitely the 29th of January. It's too far ahead. We can't think that far in the future. They're the next 2 dates, 29th of Jan and 25th of March. Unless there's anything else, thank you everyone for coming along this evening. That concludes our business. Thank you very much to our presenters and also Jenny and Daniel from West Berks. Really interesting evening tonight. Really great stuff going on around the district, and really positive to hear the kind of projects that are going on to improve, West Berkshire, the district, as well as our carbon footprint and those of the individual groups involved. So thank you very much for that. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen.